maybe it's just me, but International Women's Day, shouldn't we have like that be every day? Like, why do we decide that? They get one day, and that's it. I don't know, maybe I'm just a little too woke for this world. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of It Sure Is a Podcast. We're on episode 30 today. Nothing crazy, nothing wild. But a lot of stuff to talk about. And I'm a little bit out of breath because I walked up a flight of stairs. I'm falling apart, guys. That's all I gotta say. My health is deteriorating rapidly. And we'll talk about that a little later. But yeah, International Women's Day, March 8th. That was Monday, so that was yesterday. I missed it by one day. Such a dingus. But hey, here we are. We're here, we're doing it, and we're doing it the only way I know how, which is through talking about the women in video games. But I kind of want to touch on that. I don't know why, the gender of our species is able to grow a human inside of them, then once they give birth to that human, be able to provide it sustenance from their own body. Right, I don't understand why we place those, we place them lower on the totem pole, because, it's not a lie, male-dominated society here, but I don't know. They're able to grow a whole person. What's the guy do? My personal, record, what? 30 seconds of enjoyment, and that's it? And then they have to deal 9 months to have a kid, and then they have to feed the kid, and then depending on the situation, you have to deal with it for 18 years. Or if you're like me, a lot longer. Oh, shoot. Yeah, it's kind of a strange thing to break down, but we're not getting into the political side of things because the only natural next step for something like that is to go there. We don't go there. So, women in gaming. Ever since the dawn of games, it has been a media that is geared towards men. Men is the target audience, and I really think men will always be the target audience. And it's always interesting to see developers who are women who kind of put games together on their own. The only reason I say that, and you're probably thinking there, only reason I put it together on their own. Brandon, are you saying women aren't smart enough to make a game? No, it's not what I'm saying. Whenever someone brings up that fact about a developer of a game, they're like, oh, it's made by one developer, she did this. It's always a point to make it that, because gaming has just been a male-dominated media, like I said earlier. But then if it's a male-dominated media, then you have to understand that the original inception of female characters hasn't been the best, right? So recently I've been playing through Bravely Default 2, Xenoblade 1, and I beat and played Xenoblade 2 a long time ago. That game, we have a love-hate, and that game is very much a big offender of this. But especially in RPGs, whenever the male character gets an upgrade in armor, it's an armor set. It's an armor that you could look at and be like, oh, I could see that protecting someone. But it's for the women in those games. The armor sets are scantily clad bikinis, right? I even see a little bit of it in Bravely Default 2. And even in Xenoblade 1, the definitive edition, you can change the armor sets. And there's this one character you meet early, and you can change her armor set the second you do. Right? She has this kind of a little bit of a longer crop top that she wears, and that is her outfit, right? And with that, you could understand that, okay, it fits into the world, it works with the world. But then when you upgrade the armor and you're like, oh, it's a new armor piece with better stats, you put it on her, it is like it is like a scaly push-up sports bra. Like, that's what it turns into. I'm like, are you kidding me? Or like, the very first woman of gaming, if you could compare that because there was Miss Pac-Man before this person, but Miss Pac-Man was a circle with a bow. And that didn't make me have strange feelings in strange places. But the first time I saw Lara Croft's polygonal titties, that's when I felt a strange feeling in a strange place. Like, they really made sure you knew that she was a woman. And it was just like tank top, short shorts. Now, I will say in the Crystal Dynamics reboot of Tomb Raider, I think they did a good job with doing it tastefully. Like redesigning her where, yeah, she was a tank top, but she actually wears pants. Like, it's all like understandable for what she's doing. And you can also, I guess, make notes toward fighting games and how they have a lot of female characters who are very scantily clad, but also a lot of times the guys are scantily clad too. So fighting games kind of get a pass. But I want to talk about women in games who empower women, break social norms, and kind of own it. Right? So, let me start with my first candidate here, Bayonetta. I love Bayonetta. Bayonetta 1 and 2, beautiful games. I absolutely love them. They're some of my favorite action games I've ever played. And with that being said, you know, them jumping around all different consoles and even her style changes in the second game, she is a character who, now I've had this argument with people. They're like, oh, she's over sexualized. And I kind of look at them and I'm like, have you played the games? Have you engaged in the deep narrative of Bayonetta? As I, you know, adjust my fedora. I mean, no, it's more of the character interaction. And the person says, well, no, not really. And I'm like, she is actually a person that I would say is owning her gender, owning her sexuality, right? She, yes, does some suggestive and provocative things. But at the same time, she's the type that she's comfortable with herself and she just is who she is, which she's a woman, a very proud woman and a very powerful, let's get that out of the way, a very powerful woman. She could step on me and break my collarbone and I would not remove the smile from my face. Not for a second. She's a character that's very powerful and breaks a lot of, I guess, social gamer norms in the gamer culture where they're supposed to be like that, but they're ditzy and they're like, oh, I don't know that this is a innuendo. No, she's aware everything's innuendo. She is aware of what her power has over, you know, anyone she fights, and she just owns it. She enjoys it. And there's never at one point where she's kind of like, oh, I don't know if, I guess the point I'm really trying to make is she definitely owns it. Owns her gender, owns her sexuality, owns her character, and there's not really any stereotype that's being stuck to her other than she's a girl. And it's very funny. I also had this conversation with someone else when they watched the anime and they were talking about how her tits were huge. And I was like, no, they're not. And she's like, yeah, they are. And she showed me a picture of the anime. I'm like, okay. So I showed her a picture of the actual game and she's like, oh, they're not. And I'm like, yeah. Like, they made this bombastic character without making certain elements of her obnoxious. Because a lot of games like to do that too. So with that, no, here is the perfect descriptor for Bayonetta if you need to get an idea of her character. This is very not suitable for work. NSFW, letting you know ahead of time. With that being said, Bayonetta is the type of woman who would have anal on the first date. But she would not be the one receiving, she would be the one giving. And you can put the pieces together there. But it's it's just like, that's the type of woman she is, and it's empowering and it is awesome. And it's bizarre for probably a guy to come from this approach. And also, my last episode, this same guy was playing and is still playing League of Maidens and figuring that whole game out. I have no right to be here talking about this. Okay, let's go on to our next character. One of a two-part from a gentleman known as Yokotaro. If you don't know who this guy is, he is a guy who creates very interesting games. He has very interesting narratives, and he has very interesting methods of storytelling with interesting characters. With that being said, his games are very bizarre. Now, his most recent and most successful game was Nier Automata. He also worked on the Drakengard series. 1 and 3, I know he had big influence. 1, like, he led it. 3, big influence. 2, he was there, but I don't think as much as an influence. I've been recently digesting everything about Drakengard just because I'm interested in Yokotaro's work. But also, I mean, with the power of the internet, I can experience everything and not have to, I guess, go out, get a PS2 and a PS3 to play these games. I mean, if I was able to, or if they put them on the PS4 store, I'd probably buy them because they sound fantastic after going through a review. And if you want to kind of get caught up with everything and you don't know where to start, but you want a video series that kind of has a humor to it, I recommend looking up Clemps on YouTube, CLEMPS. That will direct you to the videos. Just type in Drakengard and look at all of them. I mean, it's just bizarre storytelling and bizarre characters, but I love it. So the character in Drakengard 3, who I'm going to touch on, is named Zero. Zero is one of, I believe, 5, technically 6, because she'd be 0, of these women called intoners. They're kind of these angels that came down to Earth. They kind of messed everything up. And she pretty much has this, this track of vengeance to exact on her enemies. She just wants revenge because something they did. Now, the thing is, I'll absorb this for like a few days, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I know everything about Drakengard. And then give it 2 days later, I forget everything. So I literally had to look up a thing. But there was one scene that really caught my attention because the character is so focused on vengeance. She actually used to be a sex worker, and she just has this hate for her one sister who is a virgin, because they're all technically sisters. So, intoners will have this guy with them, and the guy's job is pretty much to keep them doing what they're doing and stay focused and not get off the path. So, Zero has this encounter with her one sister, which is 4. I think that's a number character. And the guy sees her die, and then he goes to her and is like, please kill me as well. And Zero informs him that I kill my sisters, I take their men. Now, go clean up. Front and rear, we meet tonight. And the guy's like, front and rear? So her intention from this is I kill my sister, and this man, I'm going to bang this dude. And she's like, I'm banging this dude, so you better clean up front and rear, because after the front, I'm eating that booty hole. And when I heard this line, and then I did a little research on it, on just Yokotaro's, I guess, his thought on it, was just she has desires, she has wants. Yeah, even though she was, a character in that situation as being a sex worker, she doesn't necessarily let it be a crutch, because also kind of this stuff is very natural, right? It's very natural for humans to have that sexual desire. And she's the protagonist where she has all these cool powers, but also something that you think would be a crutch is something that she's just kind of understood about herself and just kind of empowered herself. Like she just murdered this chick and she's like, you get over here, clean yourself. I'm eating booty for dinner. The guy in the cutscene is like front and rear. Like he didn't want to clean his butt. Now, I don't know if anyone subscribes to this school of thought, and I really want to talk about it real quick, in which, I mean, when you all take a shower, do you take a shower and clean everything? You know, us human beings, yes, water's going to reach there, but like you got to scrub because we got folds, crevices, creases that, you know, soap ain't going to get to. I discovered this school of thought when it was a while ago. I was listening to, I think it was a Twitch stream back when COVID was a big thing. And it like would be in the background while I'm doing all my paperwork for work. And the guy was talking about like, you know, cleaning his butt. And like someone in the chat said like, why do you spend so much time with that? Like water gets it. And I guess people think that way where it's like, yeah, water will clean my butt, so I don't need to do that. Like, no, don't be nasty. Clean your butts. Clean your butts, people. Dang. Oh, gross. So 0 from Drakengard. 3. She really kind of owns her gender, her sexuality, her presence, and even though she's a female, it's badass. Last character we got on the list here is 2B, which is one of my favorite characters. She's from Nier Automata. Now, she is dressed like a very seductive French maid. And a lot of presentation, if you look at the game, a lot of the presentation, you're kind of like, what the heck is this? This is some weird, like, is this just some weird fanboy game? But no, once you like understand the world and the story, like you earn this respect for her, and she is very, I mean, I think she's honestly more badass than like more of any of the more male-centered characters. It's all about the story. And Nier Automata is new enough and it's available enough that if you haven't played it, I recommend playing it. Now, that being said, don't stop with beating the game once. Don't stop with beating the game twice. You have to beat it at least 3 times to get the main ending. But it's worth it at the end when you reach the end. I'm not going to spoil anything. I'm going to take a sip of my tea now. Give me a second. Oh. Ow. Oh. The gag came back and got me. The bet. I'll explain that in a minute. Oh, sorry. But yeah, 2B is very much a character who, even though she's a girl and dressed like that, her personality is completely different. Now, I'm Bayonetta and crap. I can't even say that because like all these characters, 0, Bayonetta, they're all dressed cute. They're all super cute. But I mean, even other games that I haven't played, but I know that have had influence on women in gaming is like Life is Strange, that game about the 2 girls. Now, I never played it, but everyone who has played it, they just speak up and down and give it praise on everything that it does. And I think that's awesome. I think we definitely need more of that. And also, you kind of see articles here and there about girls getting into games and developing games. And I do know that Kit Fox Games, the people behind Moon Hunters and the new and upcoming game Boyfriend Dungeon, they primarily, to my understanding, mostly all their devs are women, which is just great. It's good stuff. I'm excited that women are getting into this field and they don't have to feel like they are excluded for being women, even though, like, especially for the bigger companies who make games, their target audience is still men. but at the same time, like, I want, I just want a nice world where everyone gets along and everyone's considered equal. Is that too much to ask for? But those were my best examples of women in games. The ones that I feel like really influenced a lot. Because, I mean, I could bring up Mad Moxie from Borderlands series, but maybe I don't think she's as influential. She's just a character archetype, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I don't think it is a good example for, I guess, moving the industry forward, if that makes sense. So, welcome back. I guess we get a little segment where we talk about my dwindling health condition right now. I don't think I'm dying yet, but might be soon. So, two things going on with your friend Brandon. Right now, I have a tooth that has been pretty much broken down the middle, and a big portion of it is missing. And I have spent the better part of today trying to find someone to do a basic root canal. Now, given the current situation of the world, nothing is scheduling. The place I scheduled is not even scheduling out until June 30th. And I can't be taking antibiotics like amoxicillin and a bunch of pain medications until then. Amoxicillin makes my body feel weird. I know it's strange. Everyone's like, that's not supposed to make your body feel weird. I'm built different, okay? And my dentist is very adamant about saving the tooth. So yesterday, on International Women's Day, I went to the dentist. Once early in the morning, and then once later in the evening. Early in the morning, I'm like, this is so bad. I've been up since 2 a.m. with this throbbing pain. My whole bottom jaw, can't feel it. And it's like affecting me so much that I feel it in my ear canal, if that makes sense. And my dentist's like, okay, get in here. So he was able to look at it, and he's like, and the way it happened was like, he's like, I have time this morning, but only for a little bit. So we got in there, and he was only able to look at it, and he just said, okay, I want you to come back later when we have an opening because someone canceled, but I need you to go pick up this medication. So I pick it up, I'm taking it, and I go back in, and he's like, yeah, your tooth is abscessed. There's a lot of infection in there. It's inflamed. He was showing me on the x-ray and everything. And I'm like, what do we do? He's like, well, root canal, but I am not as experienced with that, so I'm going to send you to someone. So he does that. I contact that person early this morning, and when I do, they're like, oh, yeah, we could do that, no problem. I'm like, great. So when can we do that? And she's just like, June 30th. That's the first opening we have. I'm like, like I said, I'm not waiting 3 months. And my dentist, his approach to it is like, he needs to save this tooth. Now, small secret about your friend Brandon here, he didn't take that good of care of his teeth. Okay? When I was young, I was a little brat and I didn't take care of that part of my body. Now I'm paying for it. So, if you don't like to brush your teeth, you better get on that and keep those things nice, white, and clean, or you're going to end up like Brandon. There you go. There's the dentist advice from a guy on a podcast. And I feel like he has this tragic backstory of when he was not able to save a tooth. And I just imagine he's sitting there and it's like black and white Vietnam flashback. He's like, infantile. Let's back up a little bit. He was new to his career. I was going to use the word infantile, try to use a big word, but it wouldn't make sense in the sentence. Sorry, ADHD. He was new in the career. It's like, I'm going to save every tooth. And then, he gets in there and he's like trying to save this tooth. He's like, we can save it. I'll do the root canal. And the tooth just falls apart and is falling apart in his hand. And he realizes he can't save it. And of course, like in some dramatic twist, like the person dies in the dentist's office, and like they are slowly pulling like a sheet over the dead body, and he's just standing there in the doorway. He's like, I couldn't save the tooth. And they're like, dentist, there's a dead body in there. We have bigger fish to fry. And he's like, that tooth, I was so close. If it wasn't for these hands. And I feel like he's just so adamant about it. He's like, there's a good foundation there. You can't be losing teeth at your age. And I'm at the point where I'm like, listen, I'm tired. I'm weary. Rip this sucker out. Take it out right now. Oh, man. So it's been wild. So I've just these stack of pill bottles that I'm supposed to take these painkillers and this antibiotic, hoping to get some level of relief. Like, I am just hoping this works, but it just feels like it's not going to. Because ever since I went to that visit, I've been taking the medicine and it hasn't been helping as much as I would like it to. So there's that. Now, the other thing on the docket is that I recently went to my doctor because I've been having very strange tightening of chest pains and just feeling off a little more than usual. Now, I've been taking my medication as prescribed. I have been doing what I need to kind of redirect anxiety, which at first I thought this was because my whole life I've been prone to anxiety and panic attacks, which also lead to depression when it gets bad enough. But it's more of a chemical imbalance in my brain, come to find out years later. So when, we're taking care of that. Well, I check in with my doc and I'm like, hey, what's going on? And I explain it to him. He does a test. And like, after really talking to him about it, he's like, Brandon, you're just stressed. And I'm like, no shit, Sherlock. And he's like, no, it's like, that's what it is. It's like, I don't know what it is, but whatever you're stressed about is kind of starting to, instead of being in your head, it's starting to come out in your life. And I'm just like, oh, well, that's great. Now that stresses me out even more. What the hell? And I know it's from work. Because right now, how I do my job is I kind of put in 110%, or on a bad day, I put in like 90%. And sometimes I feel like the job doesn't appreciate me enough and they only, give me like 60% back. And I know a lot of people feel and understand this way. So during the 2 weeks I wasn't recording anything because of all that life stuff, that was also happening, and that was also kind of postponing what I could do. So I had to get back up on the horse, and then I feel like, venting it out loud, and this helps a lot of people. Nothing is being solved, but just airing your grievances, as the great holiday of Festivus would say. Festivus from Seinfeld. I hope you guys know that. If you don't, I'm going to be very sad. But having that as just a way to kind of get the idea out there, get it out of your head, it always helps you be able to process it a little bit better. Does anyone out there remember an age without internet? Internet has become such a staple of our world, our existence. I don't remember a time where internet wasn't a thing and gaming was very different. Like whenever you bought a game, it was a gamble. You had to be sold on the box art and what it was shown on the front and back. That's what it had to sell you with. And like you really don't get that anymore because a lot of games, they get constant coverage by anyone on the internet. So you literally are never surprised by a game. You always know what's coming unless the developers hide it really well or request that people don't do that. And it's just really different, I guess. And I kind of reminisce and kind of want for that older type of style, I guess. And this thought only came into my gamer girl brain when I was sitting in the parking lot waiting for that tooth stuff to get done, and I was playing Pokemon Black on my 3DS. And I'm sitting there, and I caught a Pokemon a while back, and I'm trying to evolve it. I know it evolves. It's just I don't know what level. So I literally pop out the phone, ask Google, hey, what level does this Pokemon evolve? And it was like, bam, I got you. Here it is, 38. And that would be totally different if it was like, I don't know, like 15 years ago. Because I didn't even really get good internet until 2010 or 2011, somewhere around there. And before then, like the internet was a joke. That was kind of the time where a high-speed internet was more readily available to everybody. So I didn't even have it. You know, I've been living in it for about 10, 11 years, depending. And it's just super fascinating to see different people's opinions of different people, especially younger kids, when they grew up in it and that's all they had. And they are shocked that, like, how'd you do research papers in school? And we're like, we looked it up in a book. And, like, they're just blown away, like, what? What? Or figuring out secrets in video games. The internet wasn't really there. We had to figure it out for ourselves. Now, that same situation with that Pokemon thing, if I was younger, I wouldn't know what level that Pokemon evolved. So there's two ways that could have been solved. One, I could have purchased the strategy guide, look it up, okay, there it is. Or go to school the next day and talk to my friends who are playing the game too and see if they know. And see if they have any information for me. Because that was kind of the best thing about gaming when you're younger and in school is like you run home and you play a game that everyone else is playing, and then you kind of brag like, oh yeah, I got this far in the game last night and I got to do this and I got to do this, which I kind of miss that. I kind of do it with my friends now, but none of us really play the same games anymore. I think the last game we were excited about was Cyberpunk 2077. I was able to play it on my PC Master Race, and my friend played it on the PS4, but obviously, you know, the console issue was, pretty significant to the point where he never really finished it and is kind of waiting for it to update. And I don't know when that's going to happen, but I picked up Cyberpunk again. I've been playing it a little bit. Honestly, CD Projekt Red, they're still good in my books regardless. But if I was a console gamer, I'd be upset too, probably. But also, they're dealing with those cyber attacks and all their data being sold on the dark web for like millions of dollars. Slightly terrifying. Dark web, scary place, holy crap. Never even want to step foot in there. That's just bad juju right there. But yeah, gaming before the internet was like having the internet now is such a constant thing. And then thinking about, did you know people used to play games without the internet? People used to play games on their own. People would engage in stories. Now, a lot of games are the multiplayer shooter, the team-based game, which is nothing wrong with that because I love that, but it's just different. One of the older jobs I used to work at, there was a third shift crew, and especially with my time there, I never worked third shift. I worked second shift, and I would see the third shift come in, and third shift they just kind of monkey around their phones the whole shift, just because there wasn't much it needed to do. They just kind of had to watch the place, and I was kind of like, "What did you guys do before the internet?" Right? And the guy was like, "You wouldn't believe me if I told you." I'm like, "No, tell me." And the guy, has been working there for years. He's like, "We used to play Dungeons and Dragons, right? They'd get set up. They would keep an eye on the area they were supposed to watch over, and if anything happened, they would stop the game, go handle it, and then they would go back." Like, that's the coolest thing, dude. Like, you went and played Dungeons and Dragons every work day. Like, that's the dream right there. Now, obviously, there'd be some times where you'd have to go work, but still, that's how people did things before then. And I mean, a full shift, like the night shift, and all you have to do is watch a place, it can get boring. And that, you know, and you have to be doing your rounds and you have to check and you have to do stuff like that. It's wild. Wild. How times have changed. Then at this point, I'm like, great. I'm starting to sound like an old geezer, like a boomer. Like back in my day, games were different. You probably noticed a whole lot of breaks in here. Yeah, we're getting consistent. We're getting ideas out there. Last thing I really wanted to touch on was just, where's gaming going? Where's gaming going for you? Where's gaming going for me? For me, I have started to put more stock in the independent developers or the indie devs. Because last time I talked about the gamer culture. Very negative, very I guess, comparative of things that, the fanboys really like and trying to cut down anything that isn't that thing that they really like. And if you don't like what I like and what I think is good, then you are a bad person. And also last time I kind of talked about, or if I didn't talk about it, there's a corporate level where the video game industry is now a big booming business. Let's say John Carmack and John Romero. I hope I got both those names right. They're the guys who made Doom. They were just a bunch of college guys making some video games in their basement, right? And then everything kind of changed when industries realized, we can make money off of this. So, they put stock in it and they do everything, involving that. And it's just wild. It's just a very different perspective, a very different, time where games were that little thing. And then it's moved into this big multi-million-dollar business where we keep getting the same things over and over again. We keep getting new Call of Duties. We keep getting new sports games. We keep getting new iterations of Assassin's Creed. Because at this point, they know how to work the market. And as long as people keep buying stuff, people are going to still... Well, no. If people keep buying things, we're going to get the same product over and over again. And no one's going to take a risk. No one's going to take a different perspective or a different approach to something. It's going to be the same thing over and over again, which is why, I kind of lean on the indie devs. Because all right, here's a controversial opinion. A part of me says BS to the current increase of pricing for brand new games. Right, with the new consoles going up to $70, almost $80 a game. That's almost $100 a game. Now I know in other regions of the world that's common practice, and I guess I'm not used to that. But when you buy that game and it is either the same thing or the content of it is lacking, you kind of get bummed out because you paid that much. Then again, you can get a game on Steam made by two fat guys in a basement, and they never wore pants, and they have really bad acne scars. I don't know why I'm so descriptive on these guys, but the amount of content that game can have can double or triple compared to a AAA release. You know what I mean? I feel like there's a lot of backdoor politics, and then when a game comes out that's only made by a small group, there's no one person saying, I want it to look like this and this, or there's not groups of people clashing ideas, right? I think that, Stardew Valley, my friends and I have recently been playing the crap out of that. And it is so fun. And my friend who got a Switch just to play Stardew Valley, which I don't know why he did that, because you could get it on other things. But I think to play with us, because we all had Stardew Valley on our Switches, he was like, it goes so much deeper. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, the game gets deeper. Like, I'm on year, I don't know, 4 or 5, and there's so much more to do. And I played the game initially thinking, oh, okay, you just run around town, you get a girlfriend, you farm, that's all it goes. And that's made by one dude. So one dude for $20 made a game with so much content overflowing compared to a game studio that made a AAA game, and it's like, oh, you play it for 5 hours, then you play multiplayer for a bit, and then you gotta pay for the DLC. Like, are you kidding me? Which is the obvious option here? One might not look as pretty as the other one, right? AAA games, I'll admit they're pretty, but they're like the really popular hot blonde girl in your college class. They're really pretty, but they have no substance. Under that, nothing. Nothing at all. Another example, Hollow Knight. Hollow Knight is beloved. Hollow Knight is a great game. Is Hollow Knight for me? No, I hate Metroidvanias. But I like to turn on Hollow Knight occasionally, play, run around. That was made by 2 dudes. And then they're like, the third dude, they're like, hey, could you make us some music? And the guy sitting in his room was like, sure. And he made the music. Have you heard the music of Hollow Knight? Beautiful. Have you played Hollow Knight? It's great. Like I said, it's a great game. It's not for me. But it is adored. And they only sold it for $15. $15.00. That's how much you could have purchased it on Steam. And I think it's the same price on Switch even. And their goal was, we just want to make an affordable game. But that game is so much content also. And they had free updates. It's just crazy how... And I think the reason is because all the people who are making the indie games now are people kind of in my spot where they grew up with this. They grew up with the age of gaming where gaming was treated as an art and a passion. And I understand that the people working at those big AAA studios, they're passionate. They're trying to make their way through. They're trying to get experience to do what they do. But there's always a bigger man on top saying like, all right, so how's this going to make us money? All right, we're going to put microtransactions in our single player game. That's stupid. That's very dumb. Like, I pay more for single play. What? Excuse me? It's not even like, it's skins. That's just stupid. That's just dumb. So those people, and I'm not saying every game in the era before, this modern era we're in now, not every game was perfect. Some games were complete stinkers, don't get me wrong, but all of them had enough content, enough substance. But now you can literally buy a game. And the first game I really realized this with was Star Wars Force Unleashed 2. That was my moment when I got the game. I was excited and it was really pretty. But it was about 4 hours long. And I'm like, that was it? And that's when I kind of realized. Now I still dabble in the occasional AAA game, but now let me hop on my Nintendo fanboy train. At least Nintendo with their games, yeah, they might re-release old ones, but like, there's content in there. It's a complete package. I've not played a Nintendo published game. Now there are some that are better in quality than others. There are some that appeal to people better than others because there's still a lot of Nintendo games that I don't like. But it's a game. A full-ass game. And I've just been playing a lot of indie games because... how do you compare that? One guy made a game, and it was a passion project, and it becomes a big thing. And then like a big AAA studio has like, hundreds of workers and they make a steaming pile of poop. You know what I mean? It's wild. And I'm not trying to knock anyone for what you like because I liked Anthem. Anthem was a fun game, but Anthem was critically hated. Anthem also has discontinued production on it. They're not putting any more resources into it, which is kind of a bummer because I like the idea of it. But yeah. Whew. I've been wanting to get that one off my chest.